Hello and welcome to the finals of 1999 Pro Tour Chicago. I'm Randy Bueller. I'm here with Brian Hacker, and we're really looking forward to this championship match between Bob Maher Jr. on the right hand of your screen and Brian Davis on the left. Well, I gotta tell you, the more I look at Bob Maher's deck, Brian, the more I like it. You can really tell that Bob has played this deck through multiple tournaments and really understands what's going on.
It's a very impressive deck, not just the main deck too. The sideboard is extremely impressive. 13 different cards.
Gotta love an Enlightened Tutor sideboard. Similar to Vampire Tutor sideboard, you just put one of things you can tutor for that will devastate certain opponents. In fact, we watched Bob in the quarterfinals just demolish Dirk Dabrowski with one card, Trade Routes. He has one copy of Trade Routes in his main deck, but 4 Enlightened Tutors to go get it. And one of the cards to keep an eye on for this matchup is another one of that Bob can Enlightened Tutor for. He has Ivory Masks in his main deck. Mercadian Masks rare, 2 WW. It says that you cannot be the target of spells and effects. Brian Davis only has 2 creatures in his deck, just 2 Skittering Scourges. All the rest of his damage comes from Drain Lives and Corrupts that he points straight at Bob. With Ivory Mask on the table, Brian will have an extremely hard time winning.
And not just that.
He has 2 discs in his deck, but Bob has answers for those as well.
And not just that, after sideboard in will come a Compost, which is really devastating.
The spirit of Chicago is strong with this one. First Pro Tour ever with Necro in Extended in Chicago. He is playing against a hometown guy, Bob Maher, but Maher has cashed his draw in. Maher's forced a mulligan in. Wow. First turn, Unmask You, Ritual, Necro. You can't draw that up any better, can you, Brian?
That's a pretty ridiculous draw, to be quite honest.
Maher has to draw 2 Force of Wills and 2 blue cards. For this, how does he win?
Well, he's still got the Enlightened Tutor engine, so as long as he can keep enough land in his hand and on the board, he could potentially Enlightened Tutor for an Ivory Mask, which should stall the game. Brian may not want to play, and remember, I think in this first game, other than the discs, he doesn't really have any way to deal with the enchantments, so the game could stall out if he can get a disc or an Oath. An Oath will stop the creature damage too.
Well, I mean, Brian only has 2 creatures in his entire deck.
Right.
By the way, there's 5 creatures total between both decks. Bob has 3, Brian has 2. Bob does have a 4th creature in his sideboard, to be fair. That draw is not very good either.
That's a really poor draw.
Wasteland is his only land.
Does have a
he has an Impulse.
A Force of Will, I think. No, that's a Brainstorm.
Is that a Brainstorm?
I believe so.
One more time.
One more time.
I think that's a good mulligan. I think that's a really good mulligan.
I think he's right.
And if he could see his hand, he'd definitely mulligan it.
Well, it's almost good for Bob. I mean, Bob doesn't want to waste a good draw when Brian's got that. I don't think Bob has a draw that can beat Brian Davis's hand right now.
I think so.
Perverse things would have to happen in the upcoming turns. I mean, and whatever 5 cards Bob finally settles on, he's going to immediately lose one of them to Unmask.
Like, to be perfectly honest, the best hand Bob might draw might be 5 land, or like
I agree.
Something very similar.
That's
close. That's a perfect draw almost. Okay. I mean, he's going to lose the Aura Silence, which really stinks, but the rest of it is really solid. He just wants land.
He drew a black card. He can unmask him twice if he wants to. If he wants to remove Corrupt, he can go unmask you, Ritual, Necro. That's all I got.
There's rumors.
I'll do more next turn.
There's rumors that Brian Davis sacrificed a goat last night in order to get a draw like this.
Wow. Yep, take the Aura. Does he bother going for the Plow? I mean, he might as well. He's just going to refill his hand, right?
Yeah.
Is there a reason not to? Yeah. Oh, he's gonna be conservative, isn't he?
You should take this for hand when you drew 7 cards.
He should have 1 card in his hand.
Necro for 5.
Necro for 5. He's still gonna win, but it's not as much fun.
Yeah. Okay. End step. Yep.
Randy all Necro for 9 Bueller.
That was even more fun when you had Firestorm in your hand and there were like 3 creatures on the board. Played against Sven Geertsen, I get to say Necro for 11. And the look on his face was priceless because I'd already firestormed him once. He's looking at his hand, there must be something I could do. Yeah, memory's all I got left. All right, there's Morphling. I think unmask Morphling, draw some cards. You know you're going to unmask it eventually, right?
Yeah.
Not like Spinning Darkness is going to do any good.
Yeah, there it is.
Waste you. All right, so Bob has a land and a card.
That's nice. That's nice.
Brian's only got 2 permanents, right?
It's a good thing him's not in this environment anymore.
Although, they're doing exactly what Chris Pakula said they should do to fix Extended. Said ban everything until Necro's good again. Then ban Necro, and then you're done. Yeah. Wow.
This probably is actually, I mean, for Bob, as bad as this is, it could be, I mean, it really can't be worse, but he's got a couple of land in play, which isn't too bad.
Yeah, it's 8 to 20 for the record. I mean, Brian does need to take some time to build up some land in play.
He's got to develop to about six land to really get going. Although the disc is going to hit the board, and there's nothing Bob can do about it. So.
Right.
And that'll really end Bob's chances at salvaging himself with Ivory Mask or something like that.
Yeah, Brian's plan next turn is probably land done. He might go ahead and unmask if Bob actually has 2 cards in his hand. I don't know if he needs to unmask. But he just needs to take some time, build up some land, and play. Play the disc, and then start draining and corrupting.
Necroform. Okay.
Yeah, this looks correct.
So he doesn't even really care to unmask him at this point.
Right. He's not trying to defend anything. I think next turn he may unmask to make sure.
Right.
Well, how much enchantment removal does Bob have in his main deck? Does he have anything other than that one aura?
Let's take a look. Got his main deck.
Does he have a disenchant or?
No, looks like it's just the aura, which he would have because he can tutor for it.
Right, of course. Yeah, I mean, aura is the best first enchantment removal.
Right. Yeah, that's it. That's just the only one. So.
And you know what? If Brian didn't know that off the top of his head, he would have unmasked there. This kid studied. He did his homework last night. He had clearly spent a lot of time cramming last night. He didn't bother to unmask Bob because he knows the only way for Bob to remove a disc is already in his graveyard. It's kind of unfortunate that he didn't draw a land. Might have to consult for a swamp here. I think I would consult for swamp.
Yeah, sounds right.
It's not risky at all. There's 20 swamps in the deck.
What's amazing is, despite the fact that Bob
for
is in as bad a situation as you can possibly imagine, he could actually get out of this. I mean, he could potentially draw a Gaze Blessing, somehow get into something that gets rid of the disc, and put down Ivory Mask.
I really think he should have consulted for swamp there. I mean, he paid the alternative casting cost of 3B for unmask. He could have consulted for swamp and still paid that alt CC. Okay, Bob's got another counterspell. He gets to counterspell a drain. If he doesn't get the rest in the meantime.
Bob's really hoping that after he says go, Brian will reach over and draw a card.
Drain life you for 3.
It's smart not to use the ritual. Okay. He knew Bob's just going to counterspell. He's saving the ritual to sink into the next drain after he runs Bob out of counter magic. It's a good play. This kid can play. The more I think about that first game against Raphael Levy, the more impressed I am with the way Brian Davis played it. He locked Raphael Levy under his own Winter Orb, and he saw it coming from turn 4. He just played the entire game. Raphael Levy sitting there waiting for the Winter Orb to get disked away, saving stuff back so he can win after the disc blows up. Brian Davis just won the game with untapped disc in play.
Right. Well, the only problem here is that Brian does need to get some more life back. He's lost a lot of life from the Necropotence. Yeah.
Brainstorm. Okay.
So,
he has corrupt and drain
brainstorm.
In his hand, though, right?
The counterspell here would be big.
That's big.
That's huge.
Does he still have 2 blue?
That is huge.
What are his land? He's got Wasteland. He had to tap Tropical Island for that.
Right. It gets duressed away, but
he can just keep the Tundra. I can't tell if that's a Savannah in play. Then Bob needs to play Tundra. Yeah, it's a Savannah, so he probably keeps Tundra counterspell and plays the Tundra, right?
Right. That's right. This would be really big if...
Brian should duress here.
right.
I mean, it just brainstormed. He's got to know that Bob's card is decent. Yeah, there's the duress. That'll get counterspell. Now, he's got a corrupt in his hand. Ritual corrupt? Or ritual drain.
That's correct.
Drain for 4.
Or drain for 4.
Drain for 4.
Yep.
That's probably better. 'Cause now, presumably, he'll come up with a swamp and be able to... he still has a consult in his hand, right?
Yeah.
Why hasn't he consulted for swamp?
Maybe saving it to consult for something else, figuring he'll draw swamps in the necropotence.
Instep.
Yeah, but I mean, all his drains and all his corrupts would be bigger if he had another swamp.
Yeah, he didn't draw swamp.
He did get a wasteland, which will allow him to cast the corrupt.
Right.
But it's a corrupt for 5, where it should be a corrupt for 6.
Go ahead.
But he can still consult for swamp, and well, then he can't corrupt.
Well, while this game 1 may be a preview of the games to come, I don't think Davis will consistently get off as fast as he did.
Certainly not.
So, for those of you rooting for Bob, don't lose heart just yet.
And Bob has compost in his sideboard. Compost is amazing against the free spell necro deck.
Okay.
Bob brainstorms his response. Saw an extra card. It was blue. Yeah, he takes the impulse. So now he can impulse his response, but I don't think he has enough mana left. If he gets arcane denial, does he have arcane denial? Does he have a U1 counter that he can use here as an option? Oh, it's still, yeah.
Sylvan Library.
So none of that helps. He'll take the Sylvan just because it might allow him to get back into the game.
Okay.
But the drain resolves.
Oh, I mean, drain resolves?
Sylvan will get in play, I think. I don't think he's got a way to remove it from his hand, in his hand right now.
So now Davis 6, Maher 12.
Yep.
Brian will draw some more cards. And Bob will certainly play Sylvan Library here, and I think Brian should probably then disc it away. There's one swamp.
Go ahead.
Bob needs to draw a Gaia's Blessing. That's the main card to draw.
That one's not bad. It's not great. It's got 5 land in play, so you can counter a drain potentially, but
Yeah,
but no, there's wasteland on
yeah,
Brian's side of the board.
If Brian is conservative about,
Bob just nonchalantly go ahead, trying to play possum, trying to look dead. Brian should waste something, waste one of the blue mana, and then corrupt, right?
yeah, that's right. No, he didn't. And he's gonna get it first.
What's that?
Yes, of course.
What was that? Bob Maher, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, that was, I think, the first mistake we've seen
Go for
from Brian Davis.
We're not
Guy
missing
doesn't
something
make
this time,
mistakes very often. That was just a very clear instance where he should have wastelanded. But he's probably not going to get too penalized as long as he can consult for something to give him some life.
Yeah.
But that
What's
was...
he used? He's used 2 drains and a corrupt?
Yeah, I think so. Now he can...
He gets his draw phase back too.
right.
Okay.
Bob's going to play Sylvan, presumably. And now Davis should disc away the Sylvan and the Necro, right?
That's what I think. Yeah, he needs to get his draw phase
His other
back.
option is to use a consult.
I mean, this is insane. When you think about how
You know, if he
large a
removes another
start
corrupt
Davis
from the
got
game, too.
and where we're at right now, this is just really nuts. I mean, how many people really thought Bob had a chance in this game when you look at the first, like, 2 or 3 turns that Davis had? All right, there's a couple of people raising their hand, but not too many. And I think those of you that are lying.
There's 1 corrupt removed from the game, and there's a corrupt and 2 drains in the graveyard, if my memory serves. Is it? It's not 3 drains in the graveyard, is it? It might be 3 drains.
Yeah, this, boy.
So those consults are really risky.
I love these shots. You get to look at Davis. He's going, what the hell just happened?
Why? Davis sporting a competitor shirt in the top agent.
He's reviewing his turn 1. I unmasked, I cast Dark Ritual Necropotence, then I dumped Bob Maher's hand. Why am I still playing this game? This is really where you got to have composure, step back, think, okay, I got to win. I have to win.
Yeah, he knows he should have wastelanded too. He had to, as soon as that Force of Will came out, Bob tapped out for Force of Will. He has to have known that he should have wasted.
While the match gets very different after sideboarding, the first game is always a huge game to determine momentum.
Sure.
And if after this start, Maher wins, all the momentum's got to be in Maher's favor, especially after the easy way that Davis handled Levy in the semis, and relatively easy way he handled the Englishman in the top 8.
There's the elbow disc.
Yeah, there it is. He gets his draw phase back. I don't know.
You can't let Bob sell him.
Do you know, Randy, exactly what the count is on how many drain lives and corrupts he has remaining? We got our man on the floor, Scott Johns, that's going to check that.
Does he start 4 and 4?
Let's take a look.
I'm pretty sure
He starts 4 corrupt and 4 drain life. So yeah, he's got the full complement.
He's used up 2 corrupts, and I want to say 3 drains. It might only be 2 drains, so I'm not sure if he's cast 2 drains or 3 drains over the course of the game.
Oh my lord! Jeez, this is insane.
What the? Bob casually flips that onto the table. What just happened?
Go.
He has 1 disc left in his deck and 2 Skittering Scourges. We'd like to remind the crowd that the players are within distant hearing range, and they were able to hear that outburst. So I understand, but try to keep it a little quiet. Yeah, there were indeed 3 drain lives in Brian's graveyard. So he has 1 drain and 2 corrupts left in his deck, but those aren't going to do anything unless he comes up with the 1 remaining disc. Meanwhile, the 2 Skittering Scourges can win in the game, even while Ivory Mask is on the table.
I am just stunned at the developments of this game.
Look at the Bob's go-ahead hand gesture. So much more confident now than it was at the beginning.
There's a reason for that.
It's just interesting how the momentum is so visibly slow.
Yeah.
And if they really could hear our scream, that has to affect Brian Davis.
Yeah. Wow.
Because he knows.
Did that wasteland alter the course of this game? I think it did.
Yeah, I mean, Davis would have...
It was huge.
Bob would be at 6, and Brian would be at 8, plus he would have necroed for a bunch more.
Potentially this game could be over. It's amazing, really.
And this game has now been turned around by a Mercadian Masks card. That set's great. Did I say that when it came out? There's the beatdown. What's Brian's
some
life total?
offense.
And Brian does have spin in his hand.
Yeah, it is. So this game could take a while, though. If Bob draws an oath, he'll be in real good shape. Then,
he's going to let the Fairy Conclave get spun. So he can then cast Spike Feeder?
That's always landed.
That's cute.
That's a good play. That's a good play.
Another ritual.
So
Still
Davis really needs to find that Skittering Scourge, get it on board, and start
attacking. Should he
attacking.
consult for it?
I think he should, but maybe he's afraid.
All right, so now I understand being conservative if you think you've got the game won anyway, but he's in trouble.
Yeah, he's in serious trouble. I personally would consult, give it the best shot. I don't know what the math is based upon how many cards he's got in his deck, but if he has more than about 16 or 17 cards, he should definitely consult.
I think he's got like 30.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not sure what's
he
keeping
hasn't
him
used
from consulting.
He hasn't used a single consult this game. He's got like half his library left.
Yeah, I honestly
he should
think
consult for one of the 2 Scourges and just hope because as soon as Bob draws into permission, even that plan won't work.
Right. Well, I mean, he can unmask and he can do some things, but he's just giving Bob a lot of draw phases to draw into stuff he needs. And for instance, he's going to have to use a Contagion on this Spike Feeder.
Or he's got another spin, I think.
Or a spin. You probably would want to use Contagion because there's no way the spin would gain him any life.
True. Of course, you might as well wait for Bob to draw a card to give Bob the opportunity to draw Counterspell, right?
Yeah, I think he probably wants to get the counter magic out of his hand. Although, I mean, Davis needs to really get on Skittering Scourge quick here. I think before he was thinking so much about, wow, Swords to Plowshares, that's an awesome draw. It'll probably,
It'll get unmasked.
Yeah, it will get unmasked, but
he can't yes.
Oh, unmasked targets a player. You're right.
Plow is permanent in Bob's hand. Now only the second Skittering Scourge or the second disc can win the game.
So if he had consulted earlier, he'd be in a lot better shape.
If he'd consulted 4 turns ago, as soon as Ivory Mask hit the table, Bob would be dead.
Right. I think part of the reason why he might have made that error, and he hasn't made very many, so it's peculiar, but I think the reason why he made that error is because in this game he was probably thinking the creatures don't matter. I'm playing its Oath of Druids.
Right.
I don't want to put creatures on the table. And now he had to rely on getting a creature on the board to do some damage to Maher.
He's not playing against an Oath of Druids deck right now. He's playing against an Ivory Mask deck.
Right.
If you look at Bob's main deck only has 2 Oath of Druids.
Right. I mean,
it's like he has 6 Oaths and 5 Ivory Masks.
Right. The scary thing he's probably thinking is that if he consults, he'd lose the disc, possibly, or if he consults for the disc, he might lose the Scourges. And if he loses one or the other, his chances of winning reduce significantly. And certainly, if
do they reduce to less than they are?
Yeah, I agree. He should have consulted earlier, but now I think he's
only 2 in the main. He only has 2 Nevinyrral's discs in his main deck, and he's already used one of them this game. So he's got 1 disc left in his main deck, if my memories of his deck list is correct. I'll double check that. Yeah, there are 2 Nevinyrral's discs in his main deck. The other 2 are in the sideboard, along with some Dystopias, which can also remove Ivory Mask.
Oh,
eventually.
big pull. That's a disc. That's a disc.
Yeah, obviously his play was correct all along. Maybe there's some Scandinavian blood coursing through his veins. You can just see what was 4 cards down.
Okay.
Confidently lays the disc. Bob, okay.
Well, we know
Wow,
Bob
the last disc.
can't disenchant it because the Aura Silence is still in the graveyard.
Right. He
So
can draw Guy's Blessing it
that's a
back
disc.
in, and get it as the cantrip card.
Enlightened Tutor.
But he can get no. But he can get no rod.
Scoop. Welcome back. It's now time for Game 2 of the finals of Pro Tour Chicago. Bob Maher Jr. is up 1-0 after a miraculous comeback in Game 1. As soon as the match ended, I don't think you guys could hear it, but he said, "I'd like to take a minute to thank Dave Williams for this miser's cage."
And Bob Maher is clearly the miser today.
Yes, he is. That's why they call him the Great One.
After
I would like to caution the audience to be quiet. The players can hear, and Brian Davis does clearly look rattled right here.
he's looking down thinking, Ritual, Necro, after an Unmask? How is that not enough?
And by the way, it's not clear that he should have conceded that game to the Null Rod. He still had 2 Skittering Scourges left in his library that could win the game. I mean, I guess his theory is creatures are irrelevant to this matchup. But he still had a shot. He still could draw a Scourge, could consult for Scourge. I mean, we know Bob has 1 Plow in his hand, but even still, even from our point of view, the second Scourge might win the game, in theory. I don't know. I think he was clearly rattled, and he may have conceded. Maybe he just wanted to get that game over with. I mean, maybe he just wanted to conserve his mental energy and.
Yeah, the odds of him winning were really slim between the Plow in his hand, which he didn't know about.
Disheartening to try.
Yeah, but the Plow in his hand.
Yeah, I would certainly. I mean, I think it was not correct to concede there.
Yeah, it wasn't. It may not have been correct to concede, but the odds of him winning were extraordinarily slim.
Not nearly as large a mistake as the Wasteland on that Force of Will. The failure to Wasteland would have let the person.
Right.
So the sideboards for these players, they both have some relevant cards. Brian's clearly going to take all of the creature removal out of his deck. He's going to take out the 3 Spinning Darknesses and the 4 Contagions. He should put in 2 Dystopias, 2 Nevinyrral's Discs, and 3 Persecutes. In fact, he took out both his Skittering Scourges, and he left in a couple Spinning Darknesses. So he does have a couple spinning darknesses to deal with Bob's creatures. And he has no creatures of his own. So if Bob has any Oath of Druids in his deck, they're dead. They're dead cards. Bob, on the other hand, has a compost that he's able to bring in, which sounds awfully, awfully good in this matchup. And he also has a second Aura of Silence, which I'm sure he'll bring in. He has, still has the Null Rod in his main deck.
And it looks like Brian Davis has mulliganed.
Bob has 3 Oath of Druids in his sideboard right now. That means there's 1 in his main deck. That's what I would have done if I was Bob. I would leave exactly 1 card in that could deal with creatures. He doesn't know whether or not Brian's going to sideboard out his 2 Skittering Scourges. And because of the Enlightened Tutor engine, it just seems worth that 1 slot in the deck.
Yeah, even if he sideboarded out his creatures, which is what Brian Davis did, it's not that bad a disadvantage to have 1 dead card in your deck.
Right.
And it could certainly come in a pinch.
Meanwhile, what else? Bob also has access to, let's see. Bob's current sideboard, he took out his Spike Feeder and his Shard Phoenix. His Morphling is the only creature in his deck. He took out the Feeder and the Phoenix. He also took out Trade Routes. He still has a Plow in his deck. He put in an extra Gaia's Blessing. He put in Compost, and he actually put Light of Day in his deck. He put the Light of Day from his sideboard in his deck. So Bob has 2 anti-creature cards against what is now a creatureless Necro deck. I watched Compost in action in this matchup yesterday. I watched Dirk Baborowski play Pat Chapin, and Dirk did not have the Enlightened Tutor base, so Compost wasn't nearly as good for him. Yeah, Davis mulliganed. But Dirk randomly drew his 1 Compost, and it made Pat's game absolutely miserable. Every time he did anything, Dirk got to draw a card, and Necro just can't operate under situations like that. So there's Bob's hand. He's got 3 land and a good mix of spells. That's Ivory. Is that Ivory Mask? Or Sacred Ground?
Sacred Ground.
Oh, that's Sacred Ground, which came in from the sideboard. Tutor counterspell Sacred Ground. Takes the Tutor. That seems like the right call, don't you think?
Yeah, it's a little unfortunate for Bob that he doesn't have a normal land because he won't be able to have 2 mana up on turn 2 unless he draws into a land. Even the Wasteland won't give him counterspell mana. He would be able to cast like a Sacred Ground or something like that turn 2 if he wanted to.
Brian's hand, meanwhile, does not include Necropotence. I mean, that's got to be Bob's big fear, is that Brian's about to go turn 3 Necropotence, but the only way Brian does that is if he mises.
Here you go.
Draw? Not a Necro.
Yeah, there's not much going on.
Nah, he's got an Unmask for next turn, but Impulse, pretty good card.
Yeah, this is one of those things where you lose the match that you're supposed to win, you're demoralized, and it's just hard to come back mentally. I mean, he hasn't really had any decisions here. His draw's fairly poor, especially considering his draw in the first game.
Well, let's end up second goal. So we're just gonna do it now.
This is Brian Davis's first Pro Tour, as we keep saying. He's trying to become the 3rd straight rookie to win a Pro Tour Chicago. But he actually does have a lot of tournament experience. We talked to some of the judges from Memphis, and he's played something on the order of 30 Pro Tour qualifiers before he finally won one. He won a 34-person UBC qualifier with a Squirrel Prison deck.
Cast counterspell.
Started playing Magic during Mirage, so does have a fair amount of tournament experience. He's one of the more active players from Memphis. And by the way, the best performance ever for a Memphis player before this tournament was 210th. He's the first Memphis player to crack the 200, top 200.
Well, he keeps drawing more ways to get rid of the counter magic in Bob's hand, so if he eventually does draw into Necropotence, he could actually come back in this game, even though he's a little down right now.
Should Bob bless his counterspells back in? He's going to Impulse first. Oh, Sacred Ground. Doesn't do a lot, but stops Wasteland, so seems worth committing to the board. Oh, that beats Spinning Darkness, doesn't it? Or does it or does it not beat Spinning Darkness? If Spinning Darkness kills a Treetop Village while Sacred Ground's in play,
Right.
what happens? The damage kills it? Okay, so that does not beat Spinning Darkness.
Well, there's a card that he really wanted, and it's Enlightened Tutor. But he opts not to take it. What did he take
He takes
instead?
Treetop Village?
No,
Treetop Village number 3?
I don't think so. That would be really surprising if he did. Did he really?
He's
Oh, did he
going
get
be-
duressed? Oh, if he
No,
got,
that was an impulse.
Oh, that was an impulse? No, he got duressed.
Oh, he got duress.
That's why he took the
He
Treetop
impulsed as a
Village.
response to duress.
Okay, yeah, that's the correct play. I knew he
Oh,
wouldn't
okay.
take that if he...
Good play. He knew that he was going to lose the impulse.
Yeah, it was unfortunate that he didn't have one more white open so he could get the Enlightened Tutor and use 6th edition rolls to Enlightened Tutor before the duress could go off.
That's a good point.
But he's in good shape. He'll be
He's
able to
gonna
hit him
go
a couple
beatdown.
times.
Right?
Yeah, that's what I would definitely be doing.
Oh,
geez, where did that
compost
come
off the
from?
top.
Good God. That's about the worst thing
Yes.
he could have dropped right there.
Worst thing for Brian. Best thing for the hometown fans. There's consult. So Necro can hit the table right now.
Well,
And
he's probably gonna have
Bob only
do
gets to
it.
draw 1 card this turn off Brian.
Nice top deck. Want a conversation in here? I'll name it a You want a conversation?
Yeah, sure.
Deck buttons.
He does indeed consult for Necro. That's got to be what it
That won't
does.
hit the graveyard till the already has necropotence, correct? I'm assuming that. Just making sure. Yeah.
Compost will really offset all that hand destruction.
Well, he didn't lose anything that bad.
No, he needs
so
to get a
far.
disc, right?
Oh, that was very good.
That was an excellent Necro.
The
Excellent consult.
only really relevant card I think he lost was a corrupt.
Yep.
He has a persecute, but persecute at this point in the game is not much better than a duress.
Right.
Okay.
He needs to play Necro. He needs to have Bob not draw a counterspell. Put Necro on the table. Bob drew Fairy Conclave. Now what has to happen is he needs a disc before that compost gets Bob back into the game.
Yeah.
He needs to disc away compost, or
Deck
he's
buttons
just.
to 6.
I think Bob will draw so many cards that.
Yeah, it's tough too because of the treetop villages.
Yeah, those villages are going to start to hit hard.
Yeah, the sacred ground.
Instead.
So he draws. There's the disc
That's
and a wasteland, which doesn't do anything. There's a persecute. So I believe on his next turn he can play. Yes, he can play persecute and disc.
That's strong.
He's just going to discard wasteland.
Whoa.
This
Well,
is
I mean,
a
there's Sacred
replacement.
Ground in play.
Instead, remove it from the game, right?
Might as well. He's gonna have to blow the disc, I assume, right?
Yeah, I don't know if I discard wasteland. Seems
I don't think I would.
Seems like wasteland's better than swamp.
Yeah, I completely
I
agree.
mean, I understand corrupt, but
I think your graveyard resource stuff.
It's a little peculiar.
yeah, I think you should have just if he wanted if he felt he had too much land in his hand, he should have discarded swamp.
Did let's see, did Brian Davis move in his planar void?
No,
Okay.
Planar Void's still on the board.
Well, Bob doesn't have much on the top.
Just gotta go beat down with
Uh,
treetop villages there,
I
right?
think so.
Gaia's Blessing, targeting. Gaia's Blessing, Impulse, and Enlightened Tutor.
Okay.
He's gonna
This
Gaia's
is
Blessing,
strong.
targeting Gaia's Blessing, Impulse, and Enlightened Tutor.
Gives him a
It's a
chance
lot
to
of
reshuffle his
manipulation.
deck with Brainstorm.
Yep. Now be drawing off a fresh deck, and those are good cards. Those are cards he'd be quite happy to draw. This game's really tight right now. I mean, this is close. I mean, I think if Bob doesn't draw anything relevant, he'll attack for 3 with Treetop Village. Right?
Yeah, definitely with Necropotence in play, he needs to reduce Davis's life total as quickly as possible to reduce the effectiveness of Necropotence.
Draw.
Okay.
Is it worth for Davis to cast Ritual Persecute with Compost in play? Doesn't mean that might not even be worth it. It's going to be down card advantage, down cards.
Probably not. Although, yeah.
Okay, Treetop Village.
Okay.
Attack.
Yeah, there's no real reason to because
Level
you
11.
can discount Force of Will.
Go
So
ahead.
It's now Davis 11, Maher 20.
so we should think that the disc is going to come into play. And that's pretty important too, because getting rid of that compost is really key.
I think so.
And even the Sacred Ground is causing him a lot of trouble.
Right, he should not have discarded Wasteland.
Yeah, I have no idea why he discarded that Wasteland, to be honest. It's pretty peculiar because he's really used Wasteland to good effect throughout the top 8 that we've seen. So it's a little surprising they didn't want to keep it.
There's the disc.
Okay.
So Bob doesn't have an immediate answer for it.
Right. I don't think Ritual Persecute's worth it. It's just he should just refill his hand and say done.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that compost really inhibits what he's able to do effectively, especially with the discard. Nowhere near as effective as it can be without the compost on the board. So I think he should hold off on casting any of his discard spells till the compost is gone at least.
I agree.
Now this is a pretty tough situation because Bob can be very aggressive with the treetop villages. If he attacks with both, that's 6 damage. So depending on exactly what instance he thinks he's going to draw, he really can't necro too aggressively. There's also a Fairy Conclave. So let's see, does Bob have enough mana to activate? No, he doesn't. He doesn't really have enough mana to go with everybody, even if he draws a land off the top. So basically, Brian can necro for, I think, about 4. Although that's a little scary still. Funny how Bob's deck has turned into a much more offensive deck than you'd think an Oath of Ghouls deck with 3 treetop villages in play. This is a very difficult necro here.
How many cards do you think he should get? He's got 5 cards in his hand right now.
Yeah, he really, I don't know. I think he should be conservative here. Maybe no more than about 2 or 3, yeah.
Yeah, 2 or 3.
Yeah, all the cards in his hand are pretty much stuff he wants to keep.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
2's fine. I mean, he's probably going to spend his next turn casting a big drain. So it's not like he needs to find a new plan.
Next up.
Davis is down to 9. Of course, there's those treetop villages. Dystopia.
It's another way to get rid of the 2 enchantments that are on the board. Probably not. I mean, it helps in terms of like what future threats Bob could drop, but for now, he really needs to find a way of dealing with those treetop villages.
It's true.
And he's probably wishing he had that wasteland back.
Yeah, Bob still has the Swords to Plowshares in his deck, which is pretty worthless. I mean, he can plow his own creatures. That's all he can do with it.
Yeah. He doesn't know that, but...
Reflecting Pull allowed Bob access to 2 green mana.
Right.
To activate 2 treetop villages.
Now, see, this is where if Davis has to cast Consult, it would really help Bob because then he would be able to see that there aren't any Scourges in his deck and could perhaps even shorten the amount of creature elimination or creature...
That would help him in Sideboard, and then he could have the bluff where they
right.
both go play with their sideboards between games.
Right. So...
Davis is at 3.
Right. I think he's going to have to keep the disc till his turn because he can't kill.
Right, he needs to get a treetop village with it.
Right. Yeah, might as well corrupt him.
Corrupt you for 7. That resolves, putting Davis back to 10.
Draw a card.
Yep.
Maher drops to 13. Bob does get to draw a card. And Davis's plan is obviously to disc away one of the treetop villages.
At least the Sacred Ground and Compost will go.
All right, now how does the Nevinyr's disc treetop village Sacred Ground ruling work? The treetop stays even if it gets disced away.
This one's fine, right?
So if he blows up a... Yeah, that's what Brian's asking right now. If he blows up a disc, then he's generated an effect which destroys one of Bob's lands. So Bob's land comes back into play?
Necro for 1.
Yeah, the Sacred Ground will...
And stuff. Go ahead.
Yeah, since the Sacred Ground is in play when all the permanents head for the graveyard, the Sacred Ground will put that 1 treetop village back into play.
Right. I believe I heard Davis say, I messed up. I wonder what he's referring to. Might be
Possibly
referring to the Wasteland.
Yeah, I'm sure yeah. That's the only mistake he's made this game.
Bob's not drawing all that strong this game.
Counterspell.
He just has a counterspell on the plow, which is useless. 2 land. The treetop villages are still really difficult to get rid of, though.
Yeah. He should attack, right? He should attack.
Doesn't
make
really matter
Davis
either
blow
way.
his disc. Well, doesn't
Yeah.
he want the disc gone?
Yeah, he does. So he should attack, but but he should try to leave two blue open.
Sure, absolutely.
These are creatures and heat discs. Since it all happens simultaneously, this one put the land back into play, correct?
Bob's asking about the ruling.
And I'm sure he's going to hear what we're hearing up here in the booth, that
Wait, what
disking will bring the Treetop Village back.
It will put it back into play.
Yep, and head judge Nat Fairbanks has issued the correct ruling. Sacred Ground will put any creatures that die to the disc back in play, even though the disc is destroying Sacred Ground. Bob fires up Fairy Conclave. He's going to fire up Treetop Village and leave up 2 blue, right? Seems like, yeah, tap both Treetop Villages. That way you can leave the Reflective Pool untapped and have 3 blue sources available. He doesn't lose to Wasteland.
Sorry.
Davis has to blow the disc here, right?
Absolutely, yeah, and that's where was really his intention. This was
And-
kind of all predetermined.
And he should have Wasteland in his hand ready for next turn, but
Yeah.
May draw a card.
Compost
These
does trigger.
right back into play. So these.
The Necropotence, by the way, the same ruling that allows Bob's land to come back into play also hurts Brian in that Bob gets to draw a card off his Compost when the Necro goes to the graveyard. So Bob got another card up out of that.
Right. Bob drew several cards off that Compost, but unfortunately his draw has been relatively poor, and he hasn't been able to draw the
Well, I mean-
high-quality cards that he had game 1.
He got an impulse, and he impulsed for a creature land.
How many cards did he have?
I have 4.
And those creature lands are pretty threatening. There's 4 creature lands there.
Right. The only
I don't
problem
think-
is, given that... That's interesting. Let's see, could Davis have Necro there?
He could have.
He
He
opted not
chose
to.
not to. How much damage does he have in his hand? His plan
don't
at
know.
this point has to be to race. He has
Can
a
he-
Corrupt and a Drain, and Bob's at 13.
Yeah, he can.
He can
do
Corrupt
it.
for 8 and then Drain for... Yeah. But Bob has a counterspell, so he's going to persecute blue, presumably.
Blue.
You don't need the name yet. He said persecute blue.
Alright.
The right play is to say persecute. Are you countering? But he tipped his hand. He did the same thing with a consult earlier. I thought earlier he might have done it on purpose because he wanted to spell counter.
But
Maybe
it's
he
okay.
wanted this one countered, but
This is a strange game where quite the opposite of game 1, where game 1 it completely looks like Davis is going to win and Bob Walker ends up pulling it out, and then this game after Compost gets dropped with Sacred Ground, you completely think that Bob's going to win, and now it looks like Davis is in the driver's seat, where if Bob doesn't draw a counter spell or something to stop the Drain Life or Corrupt, whichever one he holds, that Davis is going to win. So this match really seems like it could go either way, even though the early turns seem like it's going to be a lopsided match.
so he can go Dark Ritual, Corrupt you for 8.
That's right, and then next turn drain him out. And the key here is for Davis not to be afraid. He's got to try and kill him here while he's got the opportunity. If he doesn't try to end the game here, things could get disastrous by giving Bob too many draws to
I
draw
agree.
into something. The only problem
He's
is
also going to take a beating from creature lands if he doesn't gain some life here.
right. We're going to need to do some math on whether that Swords to Plowshares in Bob's hand will allow him to live. He's got 8 play. So if he rituals, corrupts for 8, that would put Bob at 5.
Right.
The following turn, he drops a land,
Ninth.
putting him at 9, and can
Drains for
drain
7.
for 7, which
Plow takes Bob up to 8.
which puts Bob at 1. So oddly, the correct play here, if he could see Bob's hand, would be to say
He
goodbye.
says done.
And Davis, who seems to have
He's afraid of Force Will. Bob only has 2 cards in his hand.
I don't
now,
think
can Brian win this game if Bob has Force Will? How does it help to let Bob untap? How does that help?
I don't know. I think someone's standing behind Bob and signaling to Davis what Bob has in his hand, because this guy's just crazy. He seems to always know what to do. Always. It's just amazing. Like, it's uncanny. Like, once in a while he'll make a mistake, but for the vast majority of the time, he seems to have like some psychic ability to know when to hold off and when to go for it. I don't really understand it, because he wouldn't know the Swords to Plowshares in his hand.
I'm not convinced he should be playing around Plow.
Yeah, he should. He
can
probably
do that
shouldn't
next
be,
turn.
but it's going to work for his advantage hugely, given that Bob didn't draw a counterspell, and as long as Brian Davis still tries to corrupt and drain life him
He
out.
drew a land, so now he's fine.
Now he's got to do it. I mean, his back's to the wall now. There's no stopping it here.
Corrupt you?
How much is it?
9.
Sure.
corrupt you for 9? Sure. All right, Davis goes up to 12. Bob drops to 4.
Now, at this point, he should know that there is no counterspell in Bob's hand, because Bob would certainly counter this because then he would just attack and win the game the next turn. So if Davis thinks it through, he should know there's no counterspell in Bob's hand. Now, will Bob draw a counterspell? He draws a Lightning Tutor. That should do it. Davis should win this game. Remarkable.
Bob to win? Despite discarding a Wasteland, Davis wins anyway. He just outraces him with drains and corrupts to the head.
This is a very, very exciting final. I think this might go down to the wire.
Yeah, now Davis has got to have a little confidence. If he really does win this game, he's still a little nervous right now. He's like, Bob draws a counterspell. Bob pulled stuff out, had something up his sleeve last game.
The only thing we had better hope is that he doesn't drain him for 4, or even drain for 7. He's got to drain him for the full maximum.
Yeah, the only way Maher wins this game is if Davis drains for 4. I mean, Davis could say drain for 4. If Davis says drain for 4, then Maher is going to take a 2-0 lead.
Yeah, and we might see a grown man cry.
He's 15, he's not a grown man.
Activate. All right. Attack.
Yeah, as long as Davis sinks everything into the drain, he wins. 2 treetop villages knock Davis down to 6. So it's 6-4. Did Brian just reach over and tap Miser's Cage? Yeah, he reached over and tapped the Miser's Cage. Come on, don't say 4!
Do
Shh, don't, guys, be quiet.
Turn you for 4.
Oh my God. I can't believe he did that. All he has to do is tap 3 more lands.
What's amazing here?
It's too late. He said drain life for 4. It's on the stack.
What's amazing here is the top deck of the disc is the worst card he can draw, because then he's
left
actually
4 mana
tempted to leave the 4 mana open for the disc.
Doesn't matter.
If he draws an utter piece of garbage, he won't keep
4
mana open for the disc. And guess what happens next turn? He's got an Enlightened Tutor in his hand.
Oh my.
Anybody have any guesses what Bob's gonna Enlightened Tutor for?
Is it a Mercadian Masks card?
So despite the
it's
fact...
an aura. How can he...
Okay.
Bob Maher Jr.
You should go for the 2 casting cost Null Rod.
He scoops. Tutor. It doesn't matter what he gets. Welcome back. It's time for Game 3 of the finals between Bob Maher Jr. and Brian Davis. Bob Maher Jr. is up 2-0 in a match that could easily be 2-0 in Brian Davis's favor. Brian's had a hell of a weekend. He's played brilliantly. He's gotten to this position. Obviously a really good player, and just sitting down for the finals gives him 24 Pro Tour points. He's going to be on tour for the next 5 events, next 6 events. It's just been a great weekend for Brian Davis, but he could easily be up 2-0.
That's right.
He, in fact, in the last game, not only should he have just sunk all his mana into the drain life, but when he conceded at a point where he was not dead. Brian conceded while he'd still gained 4 life from the drain life. It's not like Bob countered the drain. He merely didn't die to it. So, all right, guys, you really do need to be quiet. The players.
Me too.
The players can hear when we're loud, and that sometimes gives away information.
Persecute from the game.
Anyway, so the game started, and both players keep their opening hands. Brian goes for a turn 1 unmask. He's got Ritual Necro in his hand. Bob does have the Force of Will, but he removed Persecute for unmask. Clearly, he's going to take Force of Will and then go Ritual Necro, right?
Yeah, I think that's the obvious play.
Ritual Necro should have won in the first game, although it didn't. But if he'd wastelanded that 1 turn, he'd let a big drain get Force of Will, he might have won.
Yeah, this is a very similar draw to the draw he had
in game 1. This is almost identical draw. We'll see if it works out any better this time. He necros for 6 cards, going down to 14 life. That'll give him a total of 8, and he has to discard 1 card during his end step.
End step.
Draws a couple unmasks, a corrupt. He has Spinning Darkness. Discards, yeah, one of the swamps. He's still got plenty. Bob finally gets a turn. Seems like Brian did an awful lot on that first turn.
Bob's got some
Go ahead.
weird synergy he has against Necropotence, where his Brainstorm will allow him to hide cards from the unmasked.
Masking.
Right.
Spinning darts from the game.
Yep, and Bob's going to
Brainstorm.
do exactly that. Bob has Oath of Druids in his hand. He obviously does not realize there are no creatures in Brian's deck. So what's he going to hide? I imagine he'll hide 2 counters. Counterspell Disrupt. It'll allow Aura of Silence to get unmasked away, right?
Yeah, that's the most likely candidate.
I mean, Bob may think the Oath is gone, but Brian knows he doesn't have any Scourges in his deck, so he'll clearly take Aura of Silence. Of course, I've said that about other plays Brian should make.
Okay, so pretty much the first 2 turns here on Brian's part have gone
Necro for 3.
according to plan. Did that even fill his hand?
It's not.
Yeah, he played a land and an unmasked,
Okay.
so fills his hand exactly. And gives him nothing to do next turn.
Well,
He
you're
can
right.
unmask.
He can unmask.
Go
That's
ahead.
it. And considering that he knows that
ahead.
Maher was hiding cards, it's probably not the worst play to unmask him.
That's fair.
But he can wait. He's not in any hurry. Does he have a... Yeah, he has a Necropotence in his hand. I think he can pitch. It's just a matter of whether or not he thinks it's worth it at the
Necro for
time.
2.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
going to wait another turn. He's going to wait till
Yeah.
he has something to defend.
That's fair.
He'll probably unmask next turn and then play the disc. There's a second Spinning Darkness. Or is it the first one? Previous one got removed from the game.
Go ahead.
Bob has Disrupt and Counterspell in his hand right now.
Bob would really like to draw some creature lands, I think.
Go ahead.
There's land number 4
Disc.
and a disc.
Counterspell.
Bob counterspells. Not sure why Brian didn't unmask before casting the disc.
he
Does
wants
he
him
not
to
care about the disc?
counterspell. Yeah,
Is that
he's
a
got
second
another one in his
Oh,
hand.
okay, that's fair.
I think he wants him to counter it.
Necro for 2.
He's been real
Okay.
careful about unmasking before.
Instant.
Ooh, really nice.
Yeah, Wasteland's solid. Wasteland Duress. He can Duress Persecute.
Go ahead.
Yeah, he's got a lot of action.
Get a lot of information about Bob's hand, know what color to pick. Bob almost draws an extra card. Catches himself.
Go ahead.
Bob has Forbid in his hand now. He's got 3 counters. Persecute blue would be really good here, but it's not going to resolve.
Well, Bob has what, 4 cards? There's a good chance he'll forbid it buyback.
Those cards are pretty good.
Yeah.
Forbid.
Let's see.
It's Forbid no
No,
buyback.
no buyback. Okay.
Leaving up Disrupt, by the way. We'll see if Ryan falls for Disrupt. Is this Persecute?
Yeah, probably.
Is he going to get Persecute disrupted?
Or he might put out the disc if he thinks the disc's more important. Yeah, he does.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's probably the right play.
Okay.
Also, he should know that the disrupts may or may not be in. So,
Yeah, we asked, and the players were allowed to look at the deck lists before this match. In the 15-minute break, they were allowed to consult the deck lists that they received last night.
Disrupt.
Okay.
6th edition tech. Bob Maher brainstormed this as a response to the Nevinyr's disc, came up with Force of Will, used it to counter the disc. It's good
Necro
stuff.
for 3.
Still, and the Unmask is still sitting in Brian's hand.
well,
What's he saving the Unmask for?
I'm not sure. I think he should have unmasked there. Certainly seems more beneficial. I mean, he wouldn't have gotten any counter magic, but at least he would have gotten the disc on the board, which seems...
Bob would probably have brainstormed as a response to the Unmask,
Yeah.
which then the disc would have resolved.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, the only there's no real problem with that. He can cast Disrupt, which keeps him from casting the disc, but all in all, seems pretty decent.
Yeah, now he doesn't have land. He doesn't have he wants a 6th land so he can start corrupting, but he doesn't have it. I'm not sure what he's saving the Unmask for. Bob still has Counterspell and Disrupt in his hand, right? What did he remove from the game with Force of Will? Was it the Disrupt?
Believe so.
It was probably the Disrupt.
Yeah. Okay, so he didn't have the Disrupt in his hand when it was cast.
Persecution in blue.
Yeah, Bob's down to just a plow in hand. Persecute blue doesn't help.
Should he consult for a swamp here? He doesn't think so.
I would.
No. I guess he can
Still no
consult
land.
now.
Yeah, but now he can't play it. He didn't play a land.
Right.
Yeah, it was indeed Disrupt that got removed from the game in Force of Will. So Bob has Plow in his hand, and I think he believe he has Counterspell on top of his library. Does he still have a Counterspell left? I mean, he brainstormed, right?
No spell. Go ahead.
Yeah, Bob's current hand is Oath of Druids and Source of Plowshares.
Two
Oh, that's right. The Counterspell has been used already.
completely useless cards. He doesn't know it, but they are.
Okay. Swamp.
He knows it's Plow. He saw Plow when he persecuted. What did he name for the console?
Swamp.
I have no idea why he didn't do this in his previous main phase.
He was probably hoping to draw one, and then he might have figured that he would use the console for something else if he drew a swamp.
I guess. Yeah, I guess I see why Brian only has 3 demonic consultations in this deck. He's obviously doesn't like to use them unless he has to.
Well, not knowing what he's running into, he may unmask first. Probably will.
Unmask you. Remove this token.
He pitches 2 good cards for a worthless card.
Brian's like, I have no creatures in my deck. Why do you have these 2 in your deck? Of course, that Source of Plowshares was pretty good in the first game. I mean, clearly you should take Plow, because it can be relevant to the match. Shouldn't have been in the last game, but it was.
Corrupt you.
Who was it that plowed their own creature at Nationals the year Bob was on the Nationals team?
Puts me 7.
Wasn't there a story in the quarterfinals where Mario Rubino lost because...
Necro for 4. Okay.
I thought that was somebody plowing their own creature. I thought that was another story. Alright, I'm just misremembering. Never mind. Alright, well, Brian's got Corrupt, Drain in his hand, along with an Evanir's Disc. And Bob Maher has an Oath of Druids, which does absolutely nothing, and land. Surely Davis is going to win this game.
Well,
We've been here before, but I don't even... I mean, last time I saw the way for him to lose it.
Drain life for 5.
I don't see how he loses this game. I top deck Ivory Mask, but he's got a disc in his hand.
Necro for 2.
Like with a disc in Brian's hand to answer any Ivory Mask, Bob has to top deck Ivory Mask and either a Null Rod or a Aura of Silence.
Go ahead.
it's a very
Or an
safe
Enlightened Tutor.
situation
I mean,
for him.
he draw one of these and an Enlightened Tutor, and that might be fast enough. But Bob's already down to 9. It's only going to take... Does he have 2? Does he even have 2 turns?
Okay.
Oh, Morphling does nothing. That's usually good to draw. He actually should have gone ahead. He should have floodplained if he really wanted to defend Morphling. Brian can... it's not going to matter. Alright, Brian has 1, 2... You see 1 short? 8, 9, 10... Now he can drain for 8. It's 1 short.
You have 1 card in hand? Yeah.
Or does he have has he not played a land this turn? He has... Yeah, he's 1 short. Yeah.
Corrupt you for 7.
Corrupt for 7 still pretty good. I take
Yeah.
takes Davis up to 13, drops Bob to 2.
It's a little risky because if he draws into a counterspell, he...
Oh, now he can Ritual Drain for 2.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it should be over. But he says Necro for 2 and draws 2 cards.
He knows.
What was that? Does Bob draw Ivory Mask or Permission? Permission good enough? No, Duress. He has to draw Ivory Mask. He has to floodplain and then shuffle Ivory Mask to the top, and then. Nah, I don't think Bob plays like that. Oh, he didn't draw anything. Duress, drain. Yeah, all right. So Brian Davis is going to win a game.
Unmask you. With Nerf books in the game.
Bob Maher is going to be up 2-1. He's going to. All right, I'm training for everything this time. All right.
I heard
Welcome
Bob
back.
saying something about that.
It's time for Game 4 of Pro Tour Chicago Finals. Bob Maher Jr. currently leads 2-1 over Brian Davis. Brian looked a little overwhelmed in the first game, and I think in the second game he was maybe still rattled, but now he's got a win under his belt. He won a game, looks a little more determined now. It'd be interesting to see whether he settles down, starts playing Magic like he's been playing all weekend. How are their draws?
Me too.
Let's see. Unearth, Swamp,
Unmask.
or Unmask, I'm sorry. 2 discs,
What's
Drain Life, and
in
I think
that
another
draw?
Drain Life.
Why did he keep that draw? Is Disc that good in this matchup? That
Maybe.
Like, he kept a draw that
Unearths
does
are
not
good,
have
too.
access to a Necro.
Figured I beat you to it.
He has a couple Unmasked and a couple Discs, but no Necropotence in this draw. This isn't the way the last couple games have gone. It should be a somewhat different game of character. I mean, Brian's had first Necro and play on the first turn 2 out of the 3 games.
True. Even the second game where it looked horrible for him, he still managed to win. So,
Looked horrible for Bob.
yeah.
That one came a little slower. The Necro didn't come out right away.
Yeah, he mulliganed down to 6 cards, waited several turns for getting a Necropotence in play.
Go ahead.
That's pretty big.
So at this point, I think he's waiting to draw Necropotence
Yeah.
before he unmasks.
I mean, some people will mulligan aggressively to try to get a Necropotence. They won't accept a draw that without one unless it's perfect. This draw was decent. It was a nice mix of land and spells, but his spells are all expensive, and his deck is built to. His deck is built such that it only really works when Necro's in play. I mean, if your deck assumes Necro's going to be on the table, you have to mulligan for either Necro or Console.
That's true. So even though he's kept the draw, though, it should be okay as long
He
as he
needs
can
another
eventually
land.
draw into Consult or...
Well, right
Or
now he
Necropotence.
needs a land. The reason he kept his draw was that it had 2 Unmasks and 2 Nevinyrral's discs.
Right.
And that doesn't help unless he draws land number 4. Of course, with only 24 land in his deck, the way he builds his mana base up is to have Necro in play, draw extra cards. The whole deck revolves around that card. That's probably why they call it a Necro. Alright, so Bob blesses a counterspell back into his deck, draws a card. His hand is Counterspell, Plow. I think you get to see all of it. That was not a land. Brian drew Dystopia. It's not bad.
It's alright, but since he's already got the 2 discs, he really doesn't need more permanent
See, now
elimination.
he's giving Bob time to sort of set up shop. Bob's got a Floodplain and a Brainstorm. He's going to get to do some Brainstorm fetch land tricks now. And he's given Bob plenty of time to set up.
Unmatch.
I mean, I'm not sure this draw was fast enough to keep.
Counterspell.
He just goes ahead and counterspells the Unmask.
Go ahead.
Now he's going to Brainstorm and
Alright.
put the bad cards back on top, reshuffle, getting a land to play with Floodplain. Oh, those are not the bad cards. I think Plow and Oath are the bad cards. He might put Wasteland back. All right, how much land does Bob have? Bob's going to keep 1 Wasteland. He can play Ivory Mask with Counterspell backup, can't he?
Certainly looks like it.
He's going to play Ivory Mask with Counterspell backup. But Brian has an Unmask and a Disc left, right?
Right, and he's still got 2 discs, so he could potentially cast one just letting it get countered and then cast the other one as
Oh, he
more
cannot
serious
unmask.
threat.
Well, if Ivory Mask can play, he can't use his Unmask. So he casts a
true.
Disc, it gets Counterspelled because he can't use
Right,
the Unmask.
so he's going to have to cast both discs.
And he has to hope Bob doesn't draw permission. And Bob does have an impulse to go find permission with. Bob's pretty close to winning the Pro Tour. A Pro Tour that Brian Davis should be leading 3-0 right now.
It's tough to say that. He made some decisions
Yeah.
that were questionable.
The wasteland in the first game was pretty subtle. I think at this level, you should see that. But it's his first time at this level, so it's only the second game that seemed really unfortunate. Boom.
There's the mask.
Go ahead.
So.
All right, Brian's got it. He knows he's got to get disc in play. He can't use his unmask to defend it. He's just got to. Well, he has Dystopia, so he has 3 ways to kill it. All right, so it's not quite as bad as I thought. Dystopia will kill it. He has 3 cards in his hand that can kill that unmask. That I remastered.
You
Can't
cannot
do
do
it.
that. You can't
That's right,
target.
yeah.
Well, he just tipped 2 of the cards in his hand. Honest mistake, I guess, right? Can't have played many games of Magic with that card in play.
Well, he can probably burn through Bob's permission between the 2 discs and the Dystopia. You should be able to get one of the 3 down.
Yeah, I believe that Bob has a counterspell and an impulse as the relevant cards in his
Right.
hand. I didn't see his draw. His counters. Wait, why doesn't he have a counterspell? He kept Oaths of Druids? Oh, he's supposed to impulse for the counter? I'm confused. He used the counter on the previous disc. He used the counter on the unmask. I apologize. Just seems like Bob always has all the right cards in his hands. At least eventually. Alright, so this is disc as response, sack my floodplain, still as response, impulse, look for force of will. Doesn't have a blue card, so
got another
force of will wouldn't
impulse.
help.
So
But he needs to come up with Null Rod would win the game. If he came up with an Enlightened Tutor for Null Rod, the game would be over.
Almost. He's still got Dystopia.
Dystopia, sure. There's force. The impulses.
He really wants to
Aura.
protect it.
There's Aura.
That's going to be the
Takes Aura and
card that gets rid of the disc. I wonder if Bob would be so aggressive with his impulsing if he knew that his efforts are about to be futile, that
Or silence.
there's a much better chance that he'll be able to, that Davis will be able to get down a disc or Dystopia and get rid of the mask.
I think I agree with Bob's play. I mean, it doesn't look like it's going to work, but there's another disc.
Yeah, he has to play it the way he's playing it. It's just, she's just falling right into the trap that Davis is sort of unknowingly setting.
Davis kept this bizarre draw that had nothing but 4 mana spells, and Bob's trying to deal with him one at a time.
Every game that we've seen so far has had a different kind of beginning, middle, and end.
Mm-hmm.
This one, no different.
Mm-hmm. Kind of fun.
All right.
Yeah, set up a bit.
Good.
Yep, there goes the mask. That's pretty good for Brian. There's Counterspell. Bob has Counterspell and Force Will in his hand. He has how much land? He has enough mana in play to cast both on the same turn. He has 7 lands in play. I'm praying 4 of them to score.
Well, still trying to get the disc
There's
out.
another disc. That'll get what? Pay the 5 for Force of Will?
Yeah, looks like it.
Pay the 5 for Force of Will.
All right.
Yeah, he's got to do that.
Go ahead.
Bob really wants to make sure that disc doesn't get the table, because
But
his
now the
eventual
next-
win is with either some combination of the enchantment locks or the creatures. And disc gets rid of both of those.
Absolutely. Well, Brian can now use his Unmask. He probably should, right?
I think
Bob
so.
has a Counterspell in hand.
He could try to persecute first.
Yeah, either way. Might be better. I mean, he can just pay for Unmask. At this point, they're both in top deck mode, and Brian knows he's got a handful of goodies. He just needs to cast them in the right order.
2 cards in. Yep.
I think I just pay. I mean, he doesn't have anything he really wants to remove from the game. It seems like he should just pay for either Persecutor or Unmask. I think the only one that would be a mistake is the disc. Now now he can't deal with Treetop Village. What is he saving Unmask and Persecute for?
I'm not sure. Probably Necropotence. He probably thinks that if he gets Necropotence down, he just wins. which...
But he should be trying to win with the cards in his hand. I mean,
Yeah.
every time that Treetop Village hits him, he's down 3 cards once he gets Necro on.
Right. Yeah, Davis has been playing mostly as if he were playing his entire deck. It's given him some advantages strategically, but on the other hand, it's giving him some problems when he's drawing cards that need to be played a little bit differently than your deck would normally play them.
All right, now he's going to cast Unmask, and now there's nothing good in Bob's hand. He's looking at Unmask, he's looking at Persecute, trying to figure out what color he'd guess. He should have done this before the disc was the best card in his hand.
Yeah.
And he just threw it out there to get Counterspell. The Treetop Village is just going to come over for a while. I mean,
Now-
Brian's got no answer to Treetop Village, and there's actually 3 discs in his graveyard.
There's something interesting that Davis did just here. When he unmasked, he got the Oath of Druids. He knows the Oath of Druids is a completely dead card, but he knows that if he takes the Tropical, if this goes to a Game 5, Maher
can't
will
take Tropical.
probably
You're not
board
allowed
it
to
out.
take land.
Oh, unmask.
You're not allowed to
is-
take
Oh,
land.
that's right. That's right.
Originally, take land on that little.
Yeah, I think that'd be a little good if you just take land out of somebody's opening draw.
First feature naming board.
Just randomly take a shot.
That
There's
seems
Light of Day.
strange.
Bob has a number of dead cards for this matchup.
Right. He's got... I guess he could put it out. There's no reason to. Either
But
way.
Bob has a Treetop Village. That might be good enough.
That looks like it is.
That'd be a bizarre way for this match to end.
Okay.
Targeting Ivory Mask.
It's kind of amazing, actually, that the disc isn't in play, considering that there were,
Impulse and Impulse.
what, 3 discs that he drew in this
Yeah.
game? And
He
not
flew-
a
yeah.
single one's come into play?
That is correct.
Even though he's had multiple unmasks.
Ivory Mask, Impulse, and Impulse are being shuffled back into Maher's deck right now. And then Bob gets a random card off the top.
Well, the cards in Brian's hand, much like the cards in games 1, 2, and 3, the Drain Life and Corrupt combo, but he doesn't have Necropotence in play, so they really aren't doing much. He needs to draw Necropotence, or probably Necropotence, Demonic Consultation, anything to get going on Necropotence, and soon, or else that Treetop Village is going to eat him up. Is that a counterspell he drew or a brainstorm?
Okay, Village.
Okay, 11. I didn't see.
Go ahead.
Another drain knife.
It's starting to get interesting. He's got 6 land in play. Davis 11, Maher 20. He's got 7 land. That's a drain for 5, a drain for 5, and a corrupt for 7. It's close, but not quite. He needs 1 more land, and then his hand can win. But Bob just top decked a counterspell.
Right. Seems like it would have been better to wait for 1 more land.
Yep.
Bob allows corrupt for 7. Falls to 14. Davis goes up to 18.
Yeah, if he had waited 1 more turn, he would have been able to. Hopefully, if he draws a land, he'd be able to kill to win the
another
game with just those 3 spells. Then again, Bob's got a counter spell, so it's looking very much in Bob's favor.
Surprised that Bob still has as many creature removal spells in his deck as he does. He hasn't seen a Skittering Scourge the entire match.
Yeah.
Consult? That's supposed to be a really good card.
Unfortunately, he's let go of all his unmasks, so he really doesn't have anything to clear out the counterspell in Bob's hand, so there's not much he can do.
Ah, this one he's actually going to cast. He says Necropotence. It's the right call, but it's going to get counterspell. Yeah, Brian accidentally flipped a card over when he picked his library up. He's received a warning for looking at an extra card. But that won't be a big deal. There's Necro. all the wastelands. How many wastelands got removed from the game right there?
Can I rearrange his out of game path?
Bob asks if he's allowed to rearrange his out of game
That shouldn't
file.
turn in this roll.
Receives the answer no. Advises him. 2 wastelands have been removed from the game by that console.
That's pretty important.
Yep.
Okay.
Brian does still have Spinning Darkness in his deck, I believe. Necro, please? Pretty please? No. That's why they call it permission. Alright, so now Brian's plan is to win with 2 Drain Lives. He doesn't have many turns with those treetop villages to play, but he doesn't need... It's like 1 Dark Ritual from pulling it off.
Yeah, I think that would do
Or
it.
2 land, or...
But Maher's got the Sword Splash here again, it looks like. Oh no, that's a Sacred Ground. Oof.
Alright, so those wastelands wouldn't have mattered much.
This is getting dangerous.
Yeah, he's going to activate both of them.
So I think Davis
Bang.
needs to top deck some combination of swamps or rituals to win.
Davis takes 6.
Swamp
down to
here would
9.
be huge, and it's a swamp. So now the next turn, if he draws a swamp, he wins.
Does he have enough?
Yeah,
1, 2,
he has
3,
exactly
4, 5,
the amount.
6.
If he drops
He
a
has to
swamp
draw
next
swamp
turn.
next turn.
That's right.
Swamp or ritual.
Yeah, I did the math on it. So he's 1
Drain
swamp
6.
away or ritual.
Swamps look like, yeah.
1 swamp away or ritual
Or
from a
corrupt.
game 5
Or
or corrupt.
Or another drain would allow him to win on the following turn.
Right. Would a demonic consultation would too, right?
Consult for ritual will do it if he does it.
Go ahead.
Alright, Bob wants permission.
Okay, let's see.
Or
What
Iron
does Bob
Mask.
draw?
Reflecting Pool.
That's not a
That's
counter
not
spell.
counter.
Activate.
Smash.
Activate.
You're at 9?
It's at
Davis
9,
does have
so-
2 turns. Davis has 1 more
Yeah,
turn after
okay.
this one.
All right, let's take
He
a look.
draws. Ritual!
Oh, jeez. That was
He's
exciting.
going to tap all his mana, right?
Let's see.
He can leave 1 untapped if he really wants to.
Bets, anybody? Anybody? Bets?
He should play around Disrupt. He can't play around Plow. He should play around Disrupt. But I don't see how he loses this, right?
No. Look at his face. Look at his face.
Again, we should be a little quiet.
He's thinking, okay, the
He's
last
thinking-
time we did this, he soared something.
He's
I
doing the
saw
math.
Disrupt on the deck list. Well, how much
He
do...
saw Disrupt get removed from the game in game 2.
That's true. What do I do this for?
Ritual.
There it is.
Ritual. Confident.
All right.
I can do this.
How much you doing it for, my man?
I think I can. Plays around Disrupt.
Activate the treetop village. Okay.
Oh, activate Treetop! 3-minute break, then it's game 5. All right, welcome back. I'm Randy Bueller. I'm still here with Brian Hacker. We're ready for game 5. This ought to be fun. Brian Davis is trying to become the 3rd consecutive rookie to win Pro Tour Chicago. He's also trying to become the first person ever to win the finals 5-0.
That was rude. That was really, really rude. You know that? You know what? When he's up there with the trophy, I'm going to tell him you said that.
It would be an amazing accomplishment. I mean,
It's a good game.
we can't think of someone who's come back from being down 0-2 in the finals. I know
To
it's
win
been done in the-
5-0? That's amazing, isn't it?
to win it all.
All right.
All right, let's see how their draws are.
Hope you're having as much fun out there as we are here. This has been crazy.
Ritual,
Oh,
no
jeez.
swamp. He cannot keep that.
Well.
Maher's hand is... Maher hasn't really had a good draw the entire match.
That might
Yeah, Brian Davis
qualify,
is already
actually.
starting to mulligan. What? How good is Maher's draw? What's he
Well,
got?
he's got an Aura Silence. It looks like he's got a counter spell. He's got some other white cards, so I think one of them's an Enlightened Tutor.
If he's got Enlightened, Compost, Aura...
Yeah, he has a. I think he had a. He had a Swords. Rumor has it that he went to the sideboard in between.
He has Compost in hand. Tundra, Tropical, Compost, Counterspell, Aura of Silence, Plow, and Light of Day.
Oh, okay, so no
The Plow and
Enlightened
the
Tutor.
Light of Day are almost worthless.
Right.
All Plow does is gain life if he sacks his own creatures, and all Light of Day does is hold up Dystopia for a turn. But Bob didn't really have much in the sideboard for this matchup. He had the Compost, which is amazing, but which has only affected 1 game so far. But he was having trouble with cards. I think Some people think maybe you should have brought in Phyrexian Furnace just to cantrip off of it, rather than have some of these dead creature removal cards. Ritual Necro.
Oh, Lord. Unmask?
We're in for a
Almost.
good game.
Jeez.
There's no force in Bob's hand.
God.
Ritual Necro will hit the table before
I'm
combos.
switching religions to whoever this guy prays to. I swear
Good Lord! Please be quiet. Celebrate quietly.
If anybody out there knows who he prays to, let me know afterwards.
By the way, Maher just said that card must be a beating because he could hear us.
That's amazing.
Celebrate with gestures.
Oh my Lord.
This takes compost, right?
Yeah.
He takes compost, rituals, necro, and whatever. Counterspell doesn't beat necro. Not after the necro's in play. Counterspell only beats the skull if the skull doesn't get into play.
Yep.
Bob says, yup. Wow.
Bob's got to start grinding in now, much like he did game 1. Hope he can...
Bob used to have a good draw. David sets aside 5 cards. Going down to 15. There's an Unmask and a Corrupt. 2 Wastelands is pretty good.
Yeah, it's really good. Especially, yeah, it's really, really important, I think, to
Bob draws
stunt
another
Bob's-
counterspell. That doesn't do anything.
Bob's
Bob
mana
has,
draw.
Bob has no land in his hand, right?
I think he has 1 left. I could be wrong, though.
Just waste.
Let's see. Let's look at his hand.
I don't
is
see
that
any
one on
land
the
in his
side?
hand.
There, is that one right?
Counterspell on the left edge.
Okay, yeah, he looks out of mana.
Davis takes 2 cards down to 13.
This looks kind of akin to Dave Price versus Ben Rubin in the finals of LA, where there was just no permanence in play.
Over Necros by 1. Discards anything but Wasteland. Please don't discard Wasteland. Bob draws.
Go.
Not land. Oh. Bang. Bob has no permanence in play. He only needs 1 card here. Maybe 2. 1 card's fine.
Yep.
Here's
Go.
Force of Will. I would go ahead and unmask just to see what's up and make room in my hand for more cards. And Brian's playing correctly. I agree with
Especially
his
with the Necro in hand. He can do it
Yep.
almost at no cost.
Right. Take Force of Will.
Jeez.
Look at that hand. How good would that hand be if Bob had land?
Hope you don't get too land.
Well, and Brian didn't have Necro on the table.
Sure, look at wasted.
That Wasteland card's pretty good. Takes Force of Will, right?
For those of you that were in LA, you can remember Ben Rubin in the 5th game after a very exciting final, much like this, lost to Dave Price. Dave Price drawing like 2 or 3 Wastelands in that final game. This seems very similar,
take
where it's
Counterspell?
just not much you can do.
Why did he take Counterspell?
I have absolutely no idea.
He wants him to force something?
I guess.
Take 1. Draw some land. That's all he needs. He just wants land.
Yeah.
For now. He just wants to build land up so he can unload, what is it, Drain, Corrupt? Bob still
Maher
doesn't
didn't
draw
land.
land. He's got 3 Drains and a Corrupt. It's just a matter of building up to 6 land and hoping Bob doesn't top deck too much.
Is he going to consult?
What would he consult for?
Okay, no, he didn't consult. All right. I guess at this point there is no reason to take any chances.
I mean, if he doesn't draw lands, eventually he should consult for Swamp, but... Alright, there's Floodplain.
Davis must think this game's going to last for a while, that he would need to take Counterspell over Force of Will.
Yeah, that surprises me. Seems like he'd take Force of Will.
I guess he's thinking that Bob's going to draw into land. Another Wasteland.
Wasteland. That card seems okay.
Yeah, it's a little
That's not a
harder to
land.
use the Wasteland.
All right, discard light a day. Yeah, I mean the fact that the floodplain untapped, you can't waste it. But
Right.
whenever you get around to it, Bob, I'm ready for you.
Shinto, Buddhist, whatever, just let me know.
Yes. He worships at the altar of Torok.
Yeah.
You can talk all you want about that Yawgmoth guy, but my money's still on Torok. Don't waste the floodplain.
Well, this is going to get interesting. I mean, Bob has at least one counterspell.
Yep. We should waste Tundra.
If you waste the Tundra, you can't counterspell.
Right.
But he's got to draw.
Taps it for mana. Oh, he's got Impulse in hand.
Right. So he should
still has
be
that
able
Force
to
of Will,
get
too.
the counterspells off.
Well, he's going to Impulse and then have Force of Will up.
Declare my attack phase?
Yeah, declare an attack phase. There you go. First attack phase of the match for him. I hate creatures.
Just remember, this is actually far from over. Remember
Yeah,
the
it's game's-
comeback that Bob
Yeah.
made game 1.
It's very true. Bob did have land in game 1, to be fair.
Impulse.
It's all he had, but
Okay, should be able to find at least
a land?
a land here. And
Yep.
he does.
Yep. Yeah, it takes Tropical Island.
Okay.
Drain off you for 3.
Drain you for 3. That's fine.
Cards in your hand. 5.
Bob has Force of Will,
Force of Will.
and he's going to use it. Bob figures that the only way he can win this game is if Davis doesn't have many more drains. He has to hope that Davis will accidentally Necrolock himself. Of course, we know that Davis has
Well, he's
plenty.
also. I mean, it's also more reasonable because Maher does have counterspells that he's going to be able to cast next turn.
True. Well, except of course he's going to get Ritual Persecuted.
Well, that's
Yeah, that's I know. That's going to get counterspell. Forbid. Can he counter all those drains?
no, not. He's got to counter the persecute first.
True.
But it's
Assuming
it's slow
Davis
here.
casts
He will
the
be able to
persecute
counter some
first.
stuff. If he draws into a land, I don't think Bob is out of this match at
All
all.
right. Now, if Davis had duressed that Force of Will way back 4 turns ago, he'd have more life right now.
Right, and
Because he
that-
would have had a Drain Resolve, and so he'd have more cards.
Right, and so theoretically, he'd be able to draw
This
into
should
more
just be
land.
Persecute.
Yeah,
Persecute chain.
no doubt about that.
Persecute,
Counterspell.
knock a counterspell out of your hand. Draw a
So
card.
Bob really needs to draw a land to get Forbid up. That is extremely key.
Yep.
All right,
Bob
all you
has
Bob
Forbid.
Maher fans, be rooting for Bob to top deck a
Yeah,
land.
that he needs this to be a land.
Because really what Davis is mostly drawing is mostly irrelevant because it's just going to be drain for a little while.
Right. Davis would have liked to gotten a land right there. but
Right, that would have been helpful because then he
Draw?
could corrupt.
Brainstorm.
Brainstorm.
That's not good
Well,
enough. He has to find
He
Force
has
of Will.
a Forbid. Yeah, he needs to brainstorm, hoping he can find
Yeah,
a
he's gonna-
counterspell in the land.
He's going to brainstorm main phase. Try to get a land into play. That's Force of Will.
Ooh,
Force of Will, brainstorm, disrupt.
that's a good
Disrupt
draw.
could be relevant.
The only problem is he doesn't have another. He doesn't have another land, so he's going to have to sift through some draws.
Oh, you're right.
Now the thing
Disrupt
is,
might
will
help.
Davis
himself
is
up
a
to
little
disrupt.
pinched on life, so he probably actually will drain life
Risk
before the
disrupt.
maximum. So the disrupt may end up going off.
Does
Let's
he
see.
risk disrupt?
Yeah,
Yes.
he does.
Boom! Wow.
I just draw the card.
There's the disrupt card. Still, this is not a land. We know this from before.
Right.
It does have another brainstorm in his hand, though.
Brainstorm.
Does this brainstorm? If this is a land and a counterspell, it's an Enlightened Tutor, a Force of Will, and a brainstorm.
That is an amazing brainstorm.
How many
That
blue cards does he
is
have for those Force of Wills in his hand?
amazing brainstorm.
He has 2 Force of Wills and 2 blue cards.
That is
all Davis has is a consult, right?
absolutely amazing.
And a corrupt. Is this over?
It's getting real close to being over.
He's got 2 Force of Wills against a corrupt and a drain.
Maher coming back.
Is Bob going to pull this off?
Yeah, I think so. It looks favorable, actually.
Davis looks necro-locked. Bob figured his only plan was to try to necro-lock Davis. Bob said, sorry, Brian, I got to try to necro-lock you. I got to hope I draw a counterspell for every drain you've got. And he might pull it off. I think he has. All right, how many blue cards was he able to keep in his hand after resolving the brainstorm?
Oh, geez. Is he going to cast that drain? He is, and that's going to leave him with only the corrupt.
Force of Will removing forbid.
What?
That leaves him with only corrupt.
What?
So he's going to have to use the consult on a swamp. But he's like 2
He
turns
ritualed
away
the
from
drain?
it. Yeah, this is just horrendous. Like, I think this game's over.
What does he tutor for?
The mask, I think.
He's only got 2 land. So if he ritual
He
corrupts,
can't cast a mask. Excuse me. He doesn't
He
have
only
any
has 2
land. But yeah, the
if he goes
Sylvan's
ritual,
good. Yeah,
if he goes
Sylvan's
ritual,
really good.
if he goes ritual corrupt, then he still has a drain life and a consult in his hand.
Right. Yeah. Essentially, he just wasted a turn because now he has to
Consult for swamp. No, it's more than a turn. He wasted a potential drain life.
Yeah.
Before he would lose to 3 counters. Now he
Right.
loses to 2, and Bob had 2.
Right.
So, okay. Go ahead.
He has to consult for swamp, corrupt, and Bob has Force of Will in his
Right.
hand.
That's right. And that,
And a
that
blue card, it's
consult
over.
could have been another one. Yeah, you're
It's
right.
over. If he'd gone ritual corrupt, he would still have a chance.
Yeah, this game is...
I mean, I don't know if he would win, but he had a chance.
And Bob's going to have a land on the top 3 because he's the great one.
He said, go?
What am I at? 18?
There's the land.
Bob asks, what am I at? 18? How many cards does he Sylvan for?
All right, Bob Maher
You know,
fans.
there is one way that Brian can get back in this. He can spin Treetop Village and gain 3 life.
Go ahead.
He's still got a shot. He can spin Treetop Village and gain 3 life. Bob has to attack him eventually, right? Otherwise Brian decks him. Abundance.
At 6.
Swamp. He consulted for Swamp, which is the right call.
Now.
Now he's going to untap and corrupt, and Bob's going to force a will it. Then he's probably going to concede. But
Oh, jeez.
Brian will probably concede rather than wait to spin Treetop Village.
Yeah, Force of Will.
That's it. Bob Maher wins the Pro Tour.